I am listening. I can hear you, and your voice speaks softly every time I pray. I am listening, and my heart says that your love is always showing me the way. I am listening. I am listening. I am listening. Have you noticed the acute anxiety when what you expect to happen doesn't? You've noticed. So a month ago, many of you heard, perhaps virtually, perhaps in person, that your minister is resigning. Reverend Joanne Rowden, who served this ministry for years, who I know has been serving especially hard this last year during the pandemic to try to keep us as a community together. Many of us did not expect that news, and it's anxiety producing. And while your ministry is in this time of transition, there's likely going to be other expectations, other hopes, other surprises, other ways that we didn't plan. And up the anxiety is going to go. So I'm Rev Greg Coles, and as your board president, your incredible board president, Greg said, yes, incredible board president. As Greg said, I serve as a credentialed consultant, ministry consultant for Unity Worldwide Ministries. And I also serve as your regional representative for our Great Lakes Unity region. And all that really means is that I have the best job in the world because I get to serve other ministries and leaders like you. And I know by virtue of you being here that you are a leader. You're a leader in your community, in your families, in your workplaces. And I know that from being here and being with Reverend Joanne, we have learned to serve our community and our families in greater ways, in bigger ways, in more conscious ways. So I've been working with your minister as well as your board, and I'll be continuing to work with you over the next few months through this transition of celebrating and releasing Joanne, and then creating a space to draw forth your next right and perfect minister. And the question I want us to ask ourselves during this time is this: how do we use change for spiritual growth? Right? Because that's why we're here. So how do we use change for our spiritual growth as individuals and as a community? And so to help us find the answer, I want to share a couple of things today. I want to talk to you about holding sacred space. And then I want to talk about the nature of change according to theory U. So I want to start by sharing a quote by Rachel Naomi Remen. Rachel is a professor of integrative medicine at the University of California in San Francisco. Many of you would know her as the author of many healing books on different healing modalities. And she says this: "Perhaps the most important thing we ever give each other is our attention." And I love that, because essentially that is holding sacred space, giving people our full attention. So notice it is not giving them our judgment. You know, that judge up there? It's giving them our attention. You know, I heard this quote: if we deny someone their perspective, we've dehumanized them. If we deny someone their perspective, we've dehumanized them. And we've not only dehumanized them, we are in conflict ourselves with reality. Because reality is there are other perspectives. And when we fight with reality, who wins? Every time, reality wins. Not sometimes, all the time. Reality wins. So giving others our full attention is not giving them our judgment. It's not having to agree or disagree with their story or with their experience. It's not trying to fix them or change their perspective. It's simply giving our full attention. I had the privilege of experiencing the keynote of Heather Plett. And Heather Plett is an international speaker who goes around the country, around the world, talking about holding sacred space. And this is what her definition of sacred space. Holding space, she says, means that we are willing to walk alongside another person in whatever journey they're on without judging them, making them feel inadequate, or trying to fix them, or trying to impact the outcome. When we hold space for other people, we open our hearts, we offer unconditional support, and we let go of judgment and control. So when I met with your board of trustees and the head of the search team yesterday, we talked about holding space through this time of change. As a leadership team, holding space for this change to happen. Because even in the midst of change, even in the midst of conflict, we can hold space for one another. And we can use this time for our own spiritual growth. So let's look at the nature of change and the nature of this transition experience we're in. And specifically, I want to talk about theory U. Those of you who are familiar with this, or if you look it up on the internet, you're going to find it's way long, it's very complicated, it's very complex, but I'm going to break it down into just its essential elements today. It was developed by a man named Otto Scharmer. Now, most of us think of change as a linear process, right? Very linear process. So if we move from point A to point B, there's a change. So as if I move from here on the stage over to here, I've changed. Well, maybe I'm driving whoever's crazy that runs the... That's how we want change to happen, right? And corporations work really hard to make this linear model work. So along the line, we're going to add this phase of analysis, right? Of gathering the data, processing the data. Then we're going to have this visioning, creating what we want. And then we'll create our strategic plan. And then we'll get exactly what we want, right? Well, how does change really work? Well, it really feels more like this. right? Where we've left point A, it's like the rug's been pulled out from underneath us, and we have absolutely no idea that there even is a point B, right? So I expect that when you heard the news that Reverend Joanne was resigning, you may have felt that most acutely. And I'm sure that most of us can remember other periods in our time, in our lives, where we've had that experience of leaving point A and feeling so out of control, so lost, so confused, naturally. And it's anxiety producing. It's anxiety producing. So Theory U offers a nonlinear image of change. So Theory U is a U shape of 3 phases. There's letting go, presencing, and letting come. So we're going to talk about letting go, presencing, and letting come. Letting go is the process that begins with the universe reminding us that story A no longer works for us. So we might have started out like a little Lego house where everything fits together and we're this great little group and everything's cozy and it's just right. But eventually things feel a little tight or a little uncomfortable or not sure about that or we want to fix this or it's become too big, too small, whatever. And we have to let go of point A to get what we need, what we want, what we're called to be. And what happens when we let go of a Lego house, parents? What happens? It's a mess. It's a mess. So you have all these pieces that are falling on the ground. It's very uncomfortable to walk around. It's like walking on eggshells. Very uncomfortable. And so what you have at the bottom of this presencing is the bowl. The bowl is the symbol for presencing. And I love it because it's a perfect analogy for holding sacred space. Because the bowl doesn't try to fix anything. It doesn't try to direct anything, change anything. It simply holds the pieces as they are. So I love that analogy of the bowl for holding sacred space. And this can be very uncomfortable to just be with those pieces, right? It can be very uncomfortable. Because some people are going to look at that bowl of pieces and they're going to see what was. And they're going to feel the destruction, the sadness, the grief. There might be some anger. There might be some shame that it's not the same. All different manner of feelings can come up looking at this bowl. On the other side, some people will look at that bowl and they will look at all these very same pieces and they'll say, wow, look what we have. Look what we can create. They're going to get juiced. They're going to be excited. They're going to be anxious to get going. They're ready to go. Both and. Not either or. Both and with the bowl. And that time in the bowl, too, we don't know how long it's going to take. I liken it to Jesus' time in the tomb, between crucifixion, resurrection. How many days? 3 days, right? The metaphysical number for completion. It will take as long as it takes to move from this crucifixion, this death, to this resurrection of whatever is to be. The other analogy, of course, is the butterfly. The time it takes for that butterfly, when it goes into the cocoon, to really dissolve as the caterpillar and to reform itself and emerge as something completely different that it was intended to become. The butterfly. And you can't rush that process. You can't make it last longer. You can't make it go faster. It will take as long as it takes. And then we move into the third phase, which is letting come. I love those words too. It's not making something happen. Letting come is not a strategic plan. Letting come is going to take as long as it takes for something new, greater to emerge. It comes from within. It's something organic. It's something spiritual. It's something intuitive. And we have to give it its time. So we change from being maybe the house to maybe a bridge or something else. We don't know right now because most of us are still in this letting go phase, right where we should be. So Sharma says there are 3 elements we need in order to move through these phases of letting go, presencing, and letting come. And those are having an open mind, an open heart, and an open will. So an open mind, I may not grasp it, I may not understand it, I may not like it, but I will have an open mind. Because until then, I cannot move through this. I must have an open mind. Secondly, I have to have an open heart. That's the more difficult, I think. It's the tender place. It's allowing those feelings that we have to be processed, to allow the grief, to allow the sadness, to allow the joy, to allow all of it to happen. And then to have the open will. Ooh, that's even harder. I want it my way, God, not your way, my way. I'll tell you how it's supposed to be. So it's having an open will to a greater power that wants to have its way with us. And there's 3 obstacles that we're going to have when we go through this, right? So the obstacle for having an open mind is our judgment. Naturally. It's the ego. It's the ego's job to keep everything status quo, to keep us safe from change. It will do everything it can to stop us. So rather than having an open mind, we're going to want to judge or blame or fix something rather than just being open. And then rather than having an open heart, we might be cynical. Oh, we've done this before. Been there, done that. I know. Rather than going to that tender place of feeling, the heart feelings. And then instead of an open will, it's the fear, right? Fear of control. Oh my gosh, I'm not in control. Surprise. But God is. A power and a force greater than us is in control. And so we need to move through that fear to the open will. So to summarize, the process of change, this change that you are experiencing as a community now, and I'm not just talking about with your minister. I mean, our world is changing now, right? We've been through a huge pandemic. We are not the same people. We are not going to be the same community we were at the beginning. I understand too, your minister, your music director, this change is there. There's a jubilee or something? No? Youth and family. Youth and family. Yeah. So lots of change. So how do we use this for our spiritual growth? How do we move through this? Oh my gosh, now everyone's worried that Jerry's leaving. I've really done it now. Do you notice the anxiety ratchet up? Unexpected. So it's not true. But what if we could be open? What if we could be open to whatever God is calling us to be open to? What if we could allow? What if we could trust? What if we could have that open heart? And so as we let go and give proper thanks for our wonderful years with Reverend Joanne, gratitude for how we've been as a ministry and who we've been as a ministry, There's going to be some discomfort in that. But it's always been this way. But the minister was always that way. It's the bowl of Lego, right? There's going to be a lot of pieces. There's going to be some discomfort. Sometimes going to feel like we're walking on eggshells. I don't know if they're happy, they're sad. How should I treat them? So to get to the other end of this change process is going to require that we become that bowl, that safe container for one another, no matter what. No matter if someone is in fear and grief, no matter if they're celebratory and ready to go, to hold that space for that collective energy that needs its time to do its thing before we're ready to come out the other side, to emerge into our next expression as a spiritual community, to hold that sacred space. So I'm a big believer of practicing what we preach and giving our not homework, play work. So I have an invitation for you. It's our fifth basic principle, right? We don't just talk about what we do, we practice it. And with our spiritual principles, I don't think of them as just principles. They are ways of being. They are ways of living, of practicing our lives, these principles. So the fifth principle of putting in action our beliefs. So I'm going to invite you to attend, if you're available, a sacred listening circle where we get to practice holding sacred space. It will be in the other room. What's it called, Greg? It will be in the community room from 12:30 till 2:30. And if you signed up, great. If you didn't sign up, great. You're invited anyway. And for those of you who may be watching online, participating online, or other things to do, because it is Memorial Weekend, right? We'll be doing this virtually on Thursday. So if you'd rather not attend today, but you'd like to practice holding space with your community, you can participate on Thursday evening, and it'll be at 6:30, and it'll be on Zoom. For that, you have to register. For Thursday, you must register. So you go to the website. When you do your registration, it'll send you the link, so you'll be able to join us for that holding sacred space. It's not a town hall, okay? There's no Q&A. There's no discussion. It will be listening, a sacred listening circle. So listening to what is Spirit saying to me, what is Spirit saying to other people in our community. So each person will have the opportunity to share something. You won't have to, it's not required, but you will have the opportunity to share what you are feeling, what you are hearing about change. And you'll have the opportunity to hear where your other people are in your community, so we can truly connect and hold space for one another as we move through this time of transition. So when things don't happen the way we expect they will, it's going to be anxiety producing. It's going to be uncomfortable. Some of us are going to be feeling some grief and some loss. Some of us are feeling that now. And others are like, I told you so, I'm ready, let's go do this. Both and. So there's a creative energy that wants to come forth. There is a change that is happening, and it's happening for a reason. And ours is simply to surrender to it and to use that energy to grow ourselves spiritually as individuals and as a community. And it's my privilege to be with you for some of this journey. I'm just so grateful I've been invited to participate in this with you. Namaste.